Chapter 13, Feeding Smitty his cake, late August 2002. This intelligence could have referred to Rudy himself or any of us or Mesa Mike. It could also have simply been an inconvenient, baseless rumor. Bikers think that they're always being infiltrated by someone. It confirms that they're big shots who need to be checked. They don't want to be investigated. That'd be a real pain in the ass, but they always want to believe that they're being investigated. It's a strange psychology. The task force discussed the issue at our headquarters, the patch. Since we couldn't come up with a way to make it work to our advantage, we decided to let it play out. In the meantime, we were off to San Diego for our annual Undercover Operators Conference. ATF training sessions are not known for their entertainment value, but this one was a blast. The speaker that weekend was Michael Durant, the Black Hawk helicopter pilot who got shot down over Mogadishu, Somalia. His lecture was truly inspirational. The specifics of his ordeal were more harrowing than I could ever imagine. He spoke at length about the generalities of perseverance in the face of lethal odds, a thing the UCs at the conference understood completely. His words sent a charge through the crowd. After Durant spoke, I decided to clear my head and hit the surf. I rented a longboard and headed down to a popular Mission Beach break. The beach was lined with bars looking over the water. I zipped up my wetsuit and paddled out. I waited with the local kids on the line and caught a few waves. The ocean did its rejuvenating thing. The salty air erased a carton of cigarettes from my lungs, and the water scrubbed my nicotine-stained fingertips clean. When I was done, I trotted up the beach to the boardwalk and turned south to where I parked my car. As I passed the Lahanian Beach Bar Club, I heard shouts of, "Baldy, hey Baldy." I turned to the bar's patio, sitting in the best seats in the house. In a bar that is notoriously difficult to get good seats at were Smitty, his wife, Lydia, and Pete Eunice. The Dago Angel we'd met at Laughlin Flamingo and who'd been a shooter that night at Harris. I walked into the patio and joined them, leaning my board against the wooden rail of the terrace. Smitty asked me what brought me to Dago, and I said I was in the area on a collection, and after that, I was going down to Tijuana on solo angel business. After we talked for a while, Pete barked, "What the fuck, bird? You surf?" He said the words as if he were confirming that I'd been to the moon. Things like surfing, especially for the old school guys like Pete and Smitty, were basically off limits for Hell's Angels. I said, "Fuck yeah, dude. Where'd you learn?" "I know these crazy ass Mexican cats down in Puerto Vallarta, drug dealers. They like to do a half dozen lines and dive in the ocean with their longboards. They get so jacked up that half the time they're just falling into the drink, but they have a hell of a time. They taught me. I'd actually learned while in college." Pete said, "Crazy wetbacks. Yeah, well, they helped me out. I helped them out. We have a good time. So you guys here on pleasure?" "Business and pleasure," answered Smitty. "I got your call. Was gonna get back at you later." He pointed his beer at Pete. "We got some serious club shit to go over, and Lydia came out too, so we could celebrate my birthday." I recalled the Laughlin surveillance tapes showing how Smitty had backed up Pete while Pete plugged away his pistol. I assumed they were getting their story straight for when they got served by the grand jury, which hadn't happened yet. I mentioned that a bunch of friends and I were planning on having dinner later on. I insisted that I treat them to surf and turf at Jose's up in La Jolla. Smitty and Lydia accepted. Pete said he wouldn't be able to make it, but told me to stop by his bar, DeMont's, if I had the time. I grabbed my board and decided to head back into the water to show them what I could do. I could see them as I bobbled up and down, my feet dangling below in the Pacific. Lydia waved. I couldn't tell if Smitty or Pete did anything, but they were clearly looking in my direction. I waved back, a big, goofy kid's wave. I was having fun sticking it in their faces. I couldn't see the point of being a Hell's Angels if it meant you couldn't enjoy things like surfing. I dropped into a lazy 4-foot wave and glided along its face. Before it petered out, I threw the board over the edge of the wave and grabbed the rail and fell into the water. I came up and looked at the bar. Lydia was waving again. I could even see Smitty's cocky, big-ass granddad smile from all the way out there. As soon as they left the bar, I got out of the water and headed to the Holiday Inn where the conference attendees were staying. I grabbed Carlos and we gathered a bunch of agents, including the young female operative with Bennett Laughlin, Jenna, JJ McGuire. JJ would be my girlfriend for the night. I knew I'd eventually need a full-time girlfriend on the case. Whoever this woman was, she'd need to take a no-shit mentality in order to survive and thrive in the biker world. There aren't too many female street agents. The ratio of men to women is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 1, so we were lucky to meet JJ when we did. JJ's main drawback was that she was a complete greenhorn, but she had a ton of good things going for her. She had brains, ambition, a positive and sunny attitude, fearlessness, and self-control. She was also very attractive, which couldn't be overlooked since it was the first thing any Hell's Angel was going to notice about her. I spoke with her for a few hours before dinner. I didn't want to pop into the restaurant with her on my arm. I wanted her introduction to look spontaneous. We decided to station her at the bar, where I'd notice her as a one-time flame, and I'd send her a drink and invite her over. This chance encounter would give her an out whenever she wanted it. If she got uncomfortable, or if I thought she was in over her head, she'd simply excuse herself for having made other plans. It also gave me a good out if Smitty or Lydia decided they didn't like her. That didn't happen. Smitty took right to her, first because of her looks and then because of her personality. JJ was all smiles and kept Lydia occupied. I think if she could have, Lydia would have taken her back to Bullhead that night. Carlos and I introed everyone as Solo's associates of one kind or another. The team was practiced and professional. They deflected all attention to Smitty and Lydia. All of them told Smitty how honored they were to have the chance to sit down and hang out with the senior Hells Angel, and for his birthday no less. Smitty happily accepted the attention. He told us he'd been in Vietnam, had killed lots of gooks, and had extensive military training. He made it sound like he was a Ranger, Marine, and SEAL all wrapped up in one lethal package. I thought of Scott Varvel, and for a moment it seemed like Smitty was no different from the broke-dick school nurse with the gun and bike fetishes. But once he got rolling, he talked about Laughlin and whispered how much he hated the Mongols. He told us everything we already knew, that he'd been arrested at Laughlin and was likely to face a murder rap, and that he was still without his dear old cut, which had been impounded. We gasped at this, as if impounding the Hells Angels cut was not only unreasonable, but downright un-American. He appreciated our outrage. At the end of the night, I took the waitress aside and told her to bring cake for everyone and to put a candle in the slice for the Hells Angel. The cake was vanilla and white icing. The candle was red. By that point in the evening, JJ sat between me and Smitty. Lydia had gone home relatively early. Smitty smiled and blew out his candle. JJ interrupted his hand and grabbed his fork. She cut into the cake and held a chunk to Smitty's mouth. Smitty took a bite and chewed, smiling all the way. JJ fed him a few more bites. Smitty said, "Shit, my wish just came true." It was a good performance, one I didn't expect from such a young and inexperienced agent. JJ was a natural. After dessert, Smitty leaned into my shoulder and asked if I'd do a collection for him in Bullhead. I said sure, no sweat. Smitty also said he had some shit for me when we got home, pulling his finger like he was firing a gun. I said, "Cool, dude, you know me." I said it was too bad we didn't hook up before Dago, since Carlos and I'd be running to Mexico in a couple days. I said he could have had a little extra birthday cash to throw around. He lamented, saying, "Well, next year. I doubted that. We got back to Bullhead, refreshed and ready to roll. Slats and I agreed that Smitty's collection was a gift, a perfect opportunity to gain more credibility. In fact, it was ideal since we'd be protecting the guy from an otherwise certain ass whooping. We decided to slow play it to see if we could get any more information out of Smitty. We were professionals. I wanted it to look like we knew how deep the pool was before we dove in. A few days after getting back from Dago, Timmy and I met up with Smitty one evening in the parking lot of the Sandbar Tavern. We shook his hand and Smitty told us to follow his white pickup over to his house. The Smiths lived in a nice working class neighborhood of double wides and simple ranches. Their street was named Swan Road. I liked that. We pulled up to the house around 8:30 in the evening. It had been another scorcher, 115 to 120 degrees. Lights still hung in the sky as if trapped by heat. and Lydia watered her plants in the front yard. It was a nice yard. Sea glass wind chimes, eccentric whirligigs, painted stones, and garden gnomes. There was a large neon red and white and blue peace sign propped up against the side of the house. None of the decorations was expensive looking. Lydia waved as we kicked the bikes down. Timmy and I waved back. She looked happy, not strung out or hungover. She had on dark denim shorts and a light denim shirt knotted below her sternum. Her black hair was pulled back in a ponytail. It was her gardening uniform. I said, "Hey Lydia, yard looks good. Love the gnomes. Thanks, Bird. Hey Timmy." Timmy said hey, and we walked up the wooden steps to the doorway, which was occupied by a beckoning Smitty. The inside of the trailer was neat and orderly. Angel's memorabilia were strewn across the walls and coffee tables, plaques, trophies, framed newspaper clippings, and orbits, drawings, and in the living room area, next to the television, was a single black and white monitor whose image was split into quads. 3 of the quads had images of the outside of Smitty's residence. The 4th was black. Lydia busied herself in the yard in the lower left section. Smitty directed us to the dining room table while lifting 2 Coors Lights from the fridge. He passed them out and we each popped one open. He then mixed himself a Crown and Coke. Smitty sat down with us. Lydia walked in and did stuff in the kitchen. Smitty complained about an argument he'd gotten into at work about a co-worker's son who died on a motorcycle Smitty had sold him. He looked into his Crown and Coke like it was an oracle and said, "Man, I've been around too much death lately. Laughlin, a brother's son, got killed recently. This kid, too much, man, too much." We didn't say much. We were tough guys, used to death and death's senselessness. As far as Smitty knew, we were hitmen. What did we care about a few random deaths? He caught on to our indifference, straightened up in his chair and said, "I don't like death, unless I'm the cause of it, He changed the subject and told us about the collection. It was over a disputed $8,000 a guy named Porter owed. It was over a disputed $8,000 a guy named Porter owed to a woman Smitty kept calling Crazy Carol. The dispute was currently in court with Carol as the plaintiff and Porter defending. He gave us a docket number and the guy's home address. Suddenly, Dennis whisked in without knocking. No one seemed surprised. Maybe Smitty had caught sight of him on the surveillance system. Dennis moved into the kitchen, got a beer, and settled down. Smitty asked him if he knew this Porter guy, and Dennis said he didn't. Dennis was sweating and on edge. He took his beer, opened the front door, looked outside in 3 directions, and walked down the steps. With Dennis gone, Lydia asked, "Bird, you know what they call Dennis?" "No," Smitty said. "They call him Chef Boyardee." Lydia asked, "You know why they call him that?" "No, why?" "Because he cooks the best rock you can find, the absolute best," said Smitty. Lydia said, Make Jesus jealous. His shit's so good." Dennis came back in. No one asked him anything, but he trilled, "Nah, I don't know Porter." "Why the fuck would I know some Porter guy?" Smitty said he messed around in the drug game. Dennis ignored him and started to bitch about $7,000 he owed the county. Apparently, his residence had incurred some taxes while he was in lockup. Smitty went in the kitchen for another drink. When he returned, he said, "I got another thing for you. Bail Bonds place has about $300,000 out and they need it back. They wanted me to help them, but I just can't do it now. Not with all this heat from Laughlin. You should take that action, Bird. It could really help set you up." I lit a cigarette and pretended to think it over. No way could I, a federal agent, start collecting debts from lowlifers like some broke dick bail bondsman. On the other hand, I couldn't say no right away. I said I'd think about it. I was pretty busy with my Vegas work and the guns, but the percentage of $300,000 was nothing to shake a finger at. I also said I'd do the Porter thing, but that I needed to do it my way, which was methodically and by the numbers. I said I needed to case him a little and that it might take a few weeks. He said he didn't care as long as it got done. I squashed out my smoke and Timmy and I got ready to leave. Dennis plopped down on the couch and squealed, "Later." Lydia gave Timmy and me both a kiss on the cheek as we passed the kitchen. She told me to say hi to Carlos. Smitty said, "You know, Bird, I was thinking, you ought to move that little blonde number out to Bullhead." I told him I'd be thinking that too. I told him I'd been thinking that too. I really had.